Hey, this is Lee Waller. Going to take another look today at motion media design in After Effects. I'm taking a look at this text animation that I've created here with each of these individual letters animating in. Let's jump in here and see what we've got. I'm going to start with a new composition. New composition, 1920, 1080, 2997, 10 seconds long will work. Hit OK on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to type out our text first. And so for this, I'm going to set up visual. I'm going to go with that text layer first. I'm going to set it up. Let's align it to the composition real quick. I'm using Avenir Next Heavy, which is a bold font you can see there. And I've adjusted the tracking to 150. This is going to allow a little space in between each letter. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to this text layer, right-click on it, and we're going to create shapes from text. So each letter now is turned into a shape. You'll see here that we have our original text layer there if we need to go back to it, but that text layer has now been turned into a shape layer. In that shape layer right there, we'll open up contents and you'll see each individual letter is now a shape. With that shape layer selected, I'm going to make an adjustment. I don't want to fill on this, so I'm going to go into the fill properties, turn that off, hit OK, and then I'm going to jump into the stroke properties and make sure that that is a solid color. Hit OK, and I'm going to adjust that color there. I'm going to change it to a blue color. And I have the hexadecimal saved already that I want to use, but you can choose whatever color you want to work with. So there's the blue color I'm going to work with. I'm going to hit OK on that. And then we want to make sure that this is 2 pixels. Now that's something that whenever you get into this and start working with it, you can play around with that and see what you like on that. We're going to add to this shape layer, to the contents of this shape layer. So let's select contents. We're going to add 2 modifiers. So you have the add button right here. Here's a number of modifiers that help us work with these shapes. And the first one that I'm going to add to it is trim paths. We'll need that in just a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and add it now. And then the next one is offset paths. So add those 2, and you'll see that both of them drop down here below all of our shapes. I'm going to jump into offset paths real quick and make a few adjustments. I'm going to leave the amount at 10, but I'm going to change the line join from miter to round. And then let's set up 2 copies of this. And there is the result at this point. Now that's not the finished work. We're going to have to trim paths is actually going to help us achieve the look that we want. So with those adjustments finished, I'm going to jump into trim paths. And I'm going to show you one thing here. The way we're going to animate this is with trim paths. But to achieve the look that I want, when I finish this animation, rather than stopping at 0%, I'm going to have to stop at 0.1. And that achieves the look. What it does is it keeps the path from closing completely. And now for the A, we're going to need to go into it and make one adjustment. So scroll open the A shape right there, and you'll see that there's 2 A's listed. We're going to go to this bottom one right here and close that one off, and that opens up the shape the way we want it. So let's animate this now. We're going to jump into trim paths. And we're going to animate the start percentage. The beginning keyframe for this animation needs to be set at 100%. So we'll start there, set a keyframe at 100%, and then I'm going to jump into the timeline, move to 3 seconds, and then I'm going to set this back down to 0.1%. And now we can jump back to the beginning, let this render out. And there's our animation. Take a look at that again. To achieve the staggered animation of each letter, I copied the trim paths. So I'm going to select it, Control C, and now I'm going to delete it. We have it copied, and I'm going to start back at the beginning of my timeline. I'm going to go to V, the first letter, and paste in that trim paths. Then I'm going to jump forward half a second. I'm going to go to the letter I, paste that in, and then continue this process. Another half second, go to the letter S, paste that in. And another half second, go to U, paste that in. Go to 2 seconds in to the A, paste trim paths in there, and then go to 215 and go to the L and paste in that trim paths. Now, I'm not going to show you all of them, but you'll see here that under the shape V, I have that trim paths right there. So what I've done is I've taken that animation that we created once, copied it, and then pasted it to each individual shape. So now when we animate it, they all start at a staggered time. So we've completed the first word, and I'm going to jump in here real quick and do this second one, just so if you missed anything the first time around, we can get it this time. Select that and then align this text. And again, to start off, go to the word, right click on it, go to create shapes from text. Again, you'll see that the original text layer is left, but it's hidden. We don't need it any longer. I'm just going to drag it down here to the bottom. And there are my outlines now, my shapes, each individual letter under contents. You'll see them there. Now I'm going to make an adjustment to this, come up to fill, and I don't want a fill on this, so turn that off, and then we're going to go to stroke and make sure that it's a solid color and whatever color you're choosing there, and then the pixel width that you want. All of that set up. I'm now going to add these two modifiers again by selecting the word contents so that they drop underneath everything that we have here already. I'm going to go to add. First one is going to be trim paths, and then the next one that we're going to add will be offset paths. Go make some adjustment to offset paths. We're going to keep that amount at 10. Turn that to round join, and then copies. We're going to make 2 copies of that. Keep in mind that the complete look is achieved with this trim paths stopping at 0.1%. And let's see, let me hide the visual outlines first. And you'll see again that we have this A and now this R that we need to fix. So jump back in there to A, and I'm going to turn off that second one right there. And then go down to R, and you'll see the second one, it's that inner part right there of the R, and we'll turn that one off. Now we're ready to animate this. So I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to start this animation at a half second in. And remember, we're going to animate on trim paths. We're going to use our start percentage. So I'm going to set a keyframe right there. And I'm going to bring this all the way up to 100%. And then I'm going to jump into 3 seconds right here. And then set my end keyframe at 0.1% again. And with that one set, I'm going to copy it, Command C, Control C, and then delete that trim paths. Then I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to start again at 15 seconds in to start pasting this into each of these. Control V to paste that right there. Jump in to 1 second, go to A, paste that in, and just continue this process. And so we can take a look at that now. All right, let's bring these two back together. Got those laid out. Let's take a look at this animation. Now, in the original animation, I have these 3 straight paths coming in. So we'll go take a look at creating those. So back in our original, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Layer, New. I'm going to add in a new shape layer and jump down to Shape Layer right there. And going to use my pen tool to draw a path real quick. I'm going to click here. once and hold down the shift key, just come outside, click again. That makes a straight path right there. You'll see that it's already adopted stroke and it's at 20 pixels, so it's a little bit larger than what I need. So I'm going to set that down to 2 pixels. And let me grab my selection tool and I'm going to jump in here to that shape layer and we're going to add in those modifiers to this. Now we're going to need to add these in a little bit differently. We're going to select the shape first and we're going to add in trim paths to the shape. You'll see that underneath shape, that trim paths drops in right there. And we'll close that up. We will come back to it in just a minute. Now we're going to select contents and let's add the offset paths. So these two do need to be added into these two places. This definitely makes this effect work. And so now we'll jump into the shape again, go into the trim paths, and I'm going to start this animation off at the beginning using again the start percentage to animate this. I'm going to set a keyframe right there at start at 100%. Then we'll jump into the timeline at 1 second in, and we'll bring that down to 0.1. And I do need to make an adjustment to this. Let's take a look at it. You'll notice that the end of it is not rounded, so I need to jump back into our contents, get down to offset path, and change that to round, and then also 2 copies of that. And there is that piece animated. Now it's a little close there, so I'm going to adjust that. I'll just do that by position of the layer itself. Just move that over a few pixels. And what I can do is simply duplicate that one now. Select it, Control D. And so I have that second shape layer there, and I'm just going to reposition it by using the position properties, just using the arrow keys to move that down and over. And then I'll duplicate that one and do the same thing. And now all I need to do, if I want to change these colors, is just go into each one and select that shape layer. Go to my stroke here, and I have these already selected, so I'm just going to grab that hexadecimal and paste that in. There is the yellow one, and then we'll go to the top and create that orange one. And so I have those 3 created. There is our orange one. I'll drop it back to 1 second. And then there's our yellow one. I'll drop it back to half a second so that the timing on those are staggered. I want to make an adjustment to the animation of these 3 coming in. I'm going to select the first one, shape layer 3 there, and hit the U key. That brings up any keyframes that are available on that layer. I'm going to go to the second keyframe there and right click on it, go to keyframe assistant, and I'm going to ease that in. And do that for the other 2. Again, select it, hit the U key, right click on that second keyframe, ease that in. And it's just going to make it a little more natural looking animation and not such a hard stop when that comes in. Those 3 come in. And so let that animate in. And so they just kind of ease into that stop rather than just a hard stop. I'm going to add in this bottom shape layer here, pretty much the same way that I added in shapes 1 through 3. So I'll go up to Layer, New, Shape Layer. And again, with the pen tool, I'm going to draw that shape. Going to start about right here, close to the middle. And then just move out, hold down the Shift key so that it'll make one straight line. Going to jump into that shape layer, open up the contents, and select Shape 1 and add Trim Paths. And then select Contents, and then add offset paths. Jump into the offset paths and make our adjustments there. And I can animate this. Start about 1 second in. drag that to 100%, set my first keyframe right there, and we'll do, let's say, 2 seconds on that. So we'll jump to 3 seconds and then finish it at 0.1%. And I will ease that one in also. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and right click on that keyframe assistant, ease that in. And for the color on this one, I used rather than solid color, a linear gradient. I'm going to hit OK on that. And definitely going to need to make some adjustments. Let me grab my selection tool. And to stretch this gradient out, I actually just bring these down here so that I can line them up. But I'm going to stretch that gradient out using the beginning point and the end point there. And now I can go into the gradient stroke here and set up. I'm going to edit the gradient right there. Using those same colors, I'll set this up real quick. So I've set my color stops. Yellow here at 33, location 33%. And then I've pulled this all the way in. And then my next color stop is still yellow. And on this side of it, I've pulled that there. And that one is set at 70%. And then my orange is down there. So that's why I've built this out. Hit OK on that. And then there is that shape layer. One of the other things that I've added to all of these pieces is a glow effect. I have two ways that I'm adding the glow effect on these three paths here, and then the two text layers. We can use the glow effect that's in After Effects. So I'm just going to select, let me start with the text first, and I'll jump into Visual Outlines right there, and we're going to add Effect. It's going to be under Stylize Glow. So I'm going to make some adjustments to this. I'm going to change this from color channels to alpha channel. I'm going to set this at 3%. Going to bring this glow radius up to 20% and the glow intensity up to 3. I'm going to change from Composite Original to None, and then we're going to leave that at Add. And the next changes I'm going to make are the color right here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select that blue color. Again, I have that saved, going to paste that in. And going to do this to this color also right here. Paste both of those in. And so there we have that glow. And I can easily take that, copy that glow, and paste it to the others that need it. And then my first line right here, sorry, my third line right there, paste it there. So I have those built out. I can also go into the other two layers, shape 1 and shape 2, and paste that in there, and then I'll just go in and adjust the colors. So on shape 1, let's go adjust that color. That's going to be my orange. And now for the yellow. I'm going to deal with our last shape here, because if I apply the glow the same way that I am with the other shape layers, it's not going to work because we have all three colors in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually duplicate these. I'm going to duplicate it once first. So with that shape layer selected, Control D, duplicate it. So I'm going to select the bottom of those two and go up to Effect, Blur, and I'm going to do a fast box blur and bring that radius up to 10, and we'll leave the iterations at 3. And then I'm going to change the blending mode right here to Add, but then I'm going to duplicate it 2 more times. Okay. And so what that does is, let me remove this top layer. You'll see that by blurring them and then using this blend mode of Add, I kind of create this glow look, and then I'll drop the original one back on top. And so we're very close to looking like our other glow. Now, in my original animation, all of the glows turned on after the object was animated in. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to start with the text layers first, and I'm going to select this one just so I can get to the end of it. And right at the end is where I want the effect to pop in. So just looking for that last keyframe. Now I'm going to jump back into it and take a look at the effect glow right there. And an easy way, I'm just going to jump down here to compositing settings, and I'm going to click the plus button, and I'm going to use the effect opacity to do this. So I'm going to set a keyframe right here and bring this down to 0, and maybe jump forward 2 keyframes, just using the page down key to do that. I'm going to bring it up to 100%, jump ahead 1 keyframe, bring it down to 25%, and then maybe 3 keyframes, just kind of randomizing this, and we'll bring it back up to 100%. So it's going to make it flash, kind of flash on. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I can repeat that. And if I want to just use that again, especially on the other text layer, I don't think I'll do that for the other shape layers, but for both of the text layers, I'll do that. So I'm just going to select those keyframes right there, copy them, Control C, and now I'll jump into the other text layer, and let me see where those keyframes end. And so again, kind of have to dig through this real quick, jump into effects, go to glow, jump down here to compositing, and click that plus button so I can get this effect opacity right there and paste those in. So let's take a look at that now. And as far as the others go, the shape layers, what we can do is I'm going to select that one and basically just do the same thing. I'm just going to turn these on. Again, using that compositing option. Bring that down to 0, just page forward once, and then bring that up 100%. And I can copy those 2 so I can easily paste them to my others. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've set up all of the glows to turn on when I want them to, except for this bottom line down here. And to accomplish that, because we've set that glow up differently, I'll just move in. So about right there. And what we'll do is, so I'll select those 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim them to start right there. Not that this starting point is brought to here, but that I trim them to start right there because we have part of it animated. So I'm going to use Alt left bracket, and that trims them right there. So they'll pop in at that point. So in the original animation, we have 2 more things that we're going to add in, this floor here and then this oval shape in the back. I'm going to work on the floor first. So let me jump back into our composition. To do this, I'm going to go up to Layer, New, and I'm going to add a solid in. I'm going to choose that same blue color that I've been using, and I'm going to set this up to be about 2700 by 1900. And then we'll hit OK. And now I'm going to bring that solid all the way to the bottom, and we're going to need to make it into a 3D layer so I can rotate it. Going to click the cube right there, and we're going to rotate this with that layer selected. Hit the R key. We're going to bring up rotation, and then on our X rotation, we'll rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm just going to bring that down. You can see as I hover over that blue handle there, I get the Z option, and I'm just going to bring that down to the bottom here. And let me scrub into my timeline and kind of see where we are so I can line that up just a little bit right there. And now I'm going to add an effect to this. So we're going to go up to Effect, and I'm going to Generate Grid. Going to make a few adjustments to this grid and then animate it. The size we're going to change that from corner point to width slider. And then let's bring that width up to 200. And then we're going to adjust the blending mode to overlay. Let's animate this. I'm going to bring my timeline indicator to the beginning of the timeline. Going to set a keyframe for anchor point right there. And now we're going to bring that timeline indicator to the very end. And let's just bring that up, that Y value from 950 up to 1900. And so we've got movement on that grid. A couple more adjustments to it. I do want to bring the transparency down on the layer to about 35%. And now with that grid animated, I'm going to jump up here and duplicate it in the effects control panel. So select grid and then Control D. And that just kind of amplifies, enhances that grid a little bit more. One more thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to add a mask to it. With the layer selected, I'm going to come up here to my rectangle tool and double click on it. And that places a mask around the entire layer. And jump into the mask controls for this. There's mask 1. And I'm going to feather this a good bit. And then I'm going to bring the expansion back. What I'm trying to do is just create some fade down here. So I may have to crank this up a good bit. Take a look at that now. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then the last thing that I want to do is create that oval in the background. To do that, I'm going to make sure that nothing is selected in my timeline. None of the layers are selected. I'm going to come up here to the rectangle tool and hold it, click on it, hold it down and move to the ellipse tool. And I'm going to double click. And that creates our oval. Definitely going to need to make a few adjustments to it. On this one, I do want to fill. So I'm going to go ahead and click fill. And I'm going to add a linear gradient into it. We're going to adjust this, of course, in just a moment. Going to hit OK on that. Let's go ahead and stretch this beginning and end from corner to corner on it. And just in case, let's change the stroke from linear gradient to solid. Hit OK on it. And I'm going to go with a white color on that. Hit OK. And then we'll make some adjustments to that gradient. So I'm going to jump down here into my timeline to this shape layer. Gradient fill, open that up. And we have linear there. And let's adjust the gradient. I'm going to bring this black color stop to the middle. So about 50% right there. And then I'm going to add another color stop and change that back to white. And now I'm going to make a few adjustments on this, drag this down to about 20%. And check this one. Let's drag this up to about 80%. Hit OK on that. Going to drag this all the way to the bottom of everything. And then I'm going to jump into our settings and set my opacity at about 10%. And I'm going to add a mask to this, but we're going to need to do a little bit more since this shape layer. If we go up there and try to add a mask the way we did just a minute ago, we're going to get another shape in there. So I'm going to go back to the rectangle tool and I'm going to jump right here. You'll see that this allows us to create a shape. But if we click on this one, it will create a mask. So now what I can do is double click and I have a mask. You'll see that bounding box right there for that mask. And I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to drag that up so that I get the bottom of that mask down about right there. And I'm going to drag this mask, extend this mask out on both sides because we're going to feather this and I don't want those edges really feathered. And so go to my mask down here, open up the properties, mask feather, And then maybe bring the expansion back just a little bit more so that I get this look right here that I'm going for right there. Bring it back just a little bit more so I don't have that intersection right there. So on the mask expansion, just a little bit more. Okay, that looks good. And that ellipse is stretched from side to side, so I'm just going to bring that size down just a little bit. Yep, that looks good. I want to fade this layer in, the floor, and then the oval. I want to fade those in together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that floor right there. Go up here to Layer, New. I'm going to go to Solid, and I'm going to make this black. Hit OK on that 19. Let's make that comp size 1920 by 1080. Hit OK. And so I have that black solid in right there. And I'm just going to use transparency on this to fade those two in. Hit the home key, go back to the very beginning of the timeline, and with this black solid selected, hit transparency. I'm going to set a keyframe right there, and then just however long you want that fade to be. I'm going to set it for 1 second, bring that transparency down to 0. And so it goes from black, it fades in from black. I did go in and make a few tweaks to the gradient back here, changed it more to a blue and some white, and then added a little bit of opacity to the ends of it. And here's our finished animation. I hope this has been helpful and that you've enjoyed this. For more on After Effects and Premiere, check out my other tutorials.